The Rockpile Report, the pettiest, hardest drinking Bills podcast.
Welcome, everybody, to another edition of the Rockpile Report podcast. I'm your host, Bills season ticket holder Drew Gear. That's my producer, Chris Kruger. Chris, what a time to be alive. We did it, baby. We're
Feels
here.
good.
It's live. I can finally wear this shirt out in public again without it being a joke. Bang. I'm doing the RVD over here. Which, honestly, Chris, if you think about wrestling, like, celebrations, RVDs was pretty cool, right? Like, it was subtle but effective.
RVD. And then he did, like, the spinning... Heel kick, split, whatever, touch his toes. Neat stuff. That's what the Bills did on Sunday.
No, we danced. We moonwalked. Like, I think I saw that in a collegiate football game. A guy scored and then did the moonwalk at the mouth of the... We moonwalked all over Miami. Guys, let's just get right into it. This is our Week 4 recap. Bills 48, Dolphins 20. We have a lot to cover tonight. First of all, your stats of the game. Tua Tagovailoa, 25 of 35. Pretty good. 282, one touch, one pick, 4 sacks, which is a season high. Josh Allen, 21 of 25, 320, 4 touchdowns, no interceptions, 2 sacks. Wins another AFC Offensive Player of the Week while playing the Miami Dolphins and advances to 9-2 all time against Miami with 31 touchdowns and just 5 interceptions since 2018. God, that feels good. The Dolphins, 0 for 3 on 4th down, with multiple sacks taken. Stephon Diggs against Kader Kohou, 4 for 5. 4 targets, 5 targets, 4 receptions, 101 yards, 4 first downs, which led the team, and 2 touchdowns. Miami pass catchers, 1 player with more than 4 targets, and 1 player with more than 46 yards. That's crazy. Chris, I thought they were the greatest show on turf.
I mean, no, they're not.
Buffalo against Miami linebackers. A perfect 7 for 7, 100% completion rate, 111 yards, 3 first downs, and 1 touchdown. Miami backup offensive lineman. Offensive tackle Kendall Lamb, 2 pressures, 1 sack. Guard, or now center. Literally, you want to start this guy in his first NFL start at center against Buffalo, and you thought that was a good idea. Liam Eichenberg, 5 pressures, which led the whole team. 2 sacks, 2 hits, 2 hurries. He fumbled and also got called for a penalty. The Bills' defensive line, 17 pressures, 4 sacks, 5 hits, 9 hurries, 5 tackles for loss, 11 solo run stops, a partridge, and a pear tree. Daquan Jones, 7 pressures, 1 sack, 1 hit, 5 hurries, was the highest graded Bills defender on the day. Tua Tagovailoa falls to 1-5 against the Buffalo Bills. 0 for 4 in Orchard Park. Miami falls to 1-13 in Orchard Park since 2017, the year Sean McDermott got hired. There were no choreographed dances in the end zone this week, baby! Woo! You can all kick rocks. How good does that feel, Chris?
Felt great. I got to watch like 80% of the game. I can only imagine what was going through your head. If you made it to the seats by the first drive, because Miami went right down and scored. Because I could probably call your wife and she will probably tell me, oh yeah, he thought that the game was over after the first drive, which is something that you are known for.
Okay. Well, first of all, let me set the scene for you. First of all, tailgate was amazing. Tailgate had a great day.
Did you get a lot of selfies?
You know she's gonna fight you.
Well, she messaged me on Facebook.
I'm sure she did.
Well, she said, keep my name out of your mouth.
Did she chew you?
I'm still waiting to say it.
Did she chew you out?
I don't know. I didn't read it. I just deleted it. I could see in the preview it said, keep my name out of your mouth. I haven't said your name. It's not worth saying.
She's just going to put you... Dude, it's going to be bad. You know when it happens, though, I'm going to have to stand there, right?
Sorry, I don't like her.
Stand there and sip a drink. So you do know the Bills scored first, right?
Yeah.
So you know that Gabe Davis scores. And so first of all, let's start at the very beginning. The tailgate. Guys, October in Buffalo, for all of the shit that this city gets in regards to its weather, this might have been the perfect day in October we've had in a long time. Like the most perfect one. You show up at the tailgate site, there's a little bit of dew on the grass, but it's already in the, everyone's wearing t-shirts already because it's already 60 degrees before the sun comes up. But it never really got more than in the 70s. By the time people started showing up, I mean, we had a great crowd. Nick, Kelly, and the girls came, and that was fun. Like, getting to see them again and actually have them come to our tailgate and see what our kind of group puts together, I loved that. I love the fact that they all came and seemed like they had a good time. My wife was talking to Kelly. I was talking to Nick. We were swapping stories. I actually saw a moment between his daughters, and I now kind of understand them a little bit better. I cooked some hot dogs for them. Kids don't bratwurst salmon with all this stuff. Like, that might be a little over their heads. Or they just might not like it. I don't know. But so I made them hot dogs. And his one daughter was taking the hot dogs, put them in a bun. She's putting all the condiments on and whatever. And his other daughter, the one we joke about how it's like, oh, she's a savage. She's just got the hot dog and she's just eating it. And her sister is yelling at her about, you need to get a plate. You need to get a bunch. She's like, no, I don't need to do anything. And it was one of the greatest things I've seen between two sisters. Like, that's something my brothers and I would have been doing.
Yeah, makes sense.
Scott and Avi came down from Canada. It's funny. I had a moment with those two at a tailgate you weren't at last year where they both showed up. And you had made a comment on the podcast about how you were like, oh, yeah, liberal males. Something about tight pants and glasses. You're like thin-rimmed glasses and something else. Or no, something about the glasses they would be wearing and like the clothes they had on. And he goes, there was a moment where we were in the car and we were listening to it. And we looked at each other and burst out laughing because we were like, damn it, that's us.
It makes sense.
I love those guys. I was happy to see both of them. Trevor, Trevor showed up. Apparently had a nightmare of a time getting in. I don't envy anybody who flies into Buffalo through New York or through any of these airports. Like, that's a shit show. Ben Kerr, his crew is there. He keeps forgetting to bring me Molson Dry. Like, I got to go on a mission apparently north of the border and try to lasso some of this in. According to them, that's dirt beer. I think it's a delicacy.
Is Blake coming to the Giant game?
Blake?
Yeah.
I don't know. I'll reach out to him this week and find out.
Or if he's coming to the Giant, but Ben's coming to the Giant game, bring us Molson Dry or XL.
You know who got me? Fucking Rhodes.
Brian Rhodes showed up.
You know who shows up and literally just hands me a small mason jar with some clear blue liquid in it and goes, oh, that's Sour Patch Kids. Enjoy that. Chris, I got roadsed. That's not just what I'm calling it. I got roadsed. Because here's what happened. I found myself thinking as I'm sitting in the seats, probably middle of the first quarter. I'm thinking back through I go, Nick was nice enough to give me a Molson Triple X that he brought. Ryan brought me some beers from a buddy of his that brews them. They were delicious. I had some beers out of the cooler. It didn't dawn on me until I was thinking about it in the first quarter, and I was like, man, I had a beer, and I was like, man, I'm feeling this. And then I got home and I was unpacking the cooler, and I'm like, man, there's still a ton of leftover beer. How did I have that heavy of a buzz in the first go? And then I thought about it and I go, oh no.
Moonshine.
I got moonshine. Rose so far he's taken down Dave Gear.
Yep.
He's taken down Drew Gear at least twice. Ryan, I love you. It's just hilarious that he's like that cowboy who blows into town, like solves a problem and then just rides out again. He did the Irish goodbye.
I like it. It's my kind of style. I'm gonna have to remember to bring some of the moonshine that I still have in the fridge.
I know.
To the Giant game.
You should allow me to drink more of that before these podcasts.
I don't know about that. I will bring it to I'll bring it to the Giant game.
if we're going to get into the game, like, it was fun. Like, you start with the morning. So if we're going through this, Chris, there's the tailgate. We're getting into this. I get into the stadium. I'm getting beer and water with Potter. And so we're hearing the game start, but it's like, listen, everything's chalked. I just want to, first of all, I needed water. I was like, whatever happens here, it's hot. I'm parched. And then it was actually a really funny moment. We get back, we get to our seats, and this group of 20-something-year-old Canadians shows up. And they all take their shirts off. And as most young 20-year-old men are, like, one of them, he literally looks like Matthew McConaughey. He's got a man bun.
So Larissa left you.
He's got six-pack abs. Like, he's thin just by nature, but because he's thin, he's got, like, good muscle tone. And he's tan with no tan lines, which means he probably works outside a lot. He's got that natural tan, not the, hey, I GTL. And so I see these guys, and I've got a heavy buzz rolling, and I was like, man, I've already sweat through my shirt because I'm just a disgusting man. And I see this, and I go, you know what? I'm not going to be outdone by McConaughey here. So Potter and I took our shirts off. And then it just became funny. Like, it was a joke. You've got two fat, almost 40-year-olds sitting behind these muscular, shirtless 20-year-olds. And I was like, what's up, guys? How's it going? Like the Chris Farley, hey, which way's the gym? Oh, what a day. It was good, Chris, and I at no point thought the Bills were out of it. The only time I ever got down during the game was when I looked at my wife and I was like, okay, they're going to score, and they're probably at some point going to cut this lead to about 10. I was like, that's just kind of what's going to happen. I expect it coming out of half. They're going to get the ball. I expect them to go down the field and score, and if they don't, I'll be pleasantly surprised. If they do, it's a 2-score game, which with that much clock and this type of offense, you can't rest on your laurels with that. But our defense, like, we'll get into it later in the podcast, but holy shit, was that second half something to watch. One thing of business we got to get out of the way. I just want to do it now. Chris, can we all raise a glass for Trey White? Like, that just, Jesus Christ.
That sucks.
This guy fought so hard to come back and was playing amazing football. Amazing football for a guy coming off an ACL tear. And then to just watch another soft tissue injury derail another season. Like, what I question is that Trey White talked about the mental aspect of coming back from that knee injury and how hard it was. And how that, a lot more than anything else, like, kind of delayed his return to actual NFL full contact football. Now I look at this and I think back to, Takeo Spikes, NBA. Takeo Spikes, NBA. The illustrious Takeo Spikes, NBA. For some of our listeners out there, they glorify this guy. Our attorney, Mark Smith, loves him. He can't get enough. He thinks the guy hung the moon. He talked openly after his career was over about how in Buffalo, when he tore his Achilles, it took him almost 2 full seasons of actual football to really trust the Achilles again. And that was kind of the downfall of him here in Buffalo. He goes, I didn't feel like I was myself mentally until I was already playing for the Chargers. I look at a guy like Trey who's already gone through one mentally taxing lower body injury. Now you have the Achilles tear. And I just wonder how hard his road back is going to be. Do you think he gets the Aaron Rodgers surgery, or I think it's also the same one that Cam Akers got? It allowed him to come back at the Super Bowl 2 years ago. There's been a lot of medical advances within the world of Achilles, so I think he'll be able to come back fine. I'll be curious to see the type of surgery that he's getting. Well, and guys, for any follow-up on that, bangedupbills.com, at bangedupbills on Twitter. He's the best. He'll be covering all that, or he can field your questions. I'll say this. Good, he feels good physically. Mentally. It's just hard to come back from that. It just is. There's nothing you can say about it. And I feel for the guy. I really do. And I will also say that this is why, for all the people out there who postulated, I was one of them, about trading Kyer Elam, this is why you don't do it. Because you drafted an athlete. You said, listen, he's not one of the best cornerbacks right now, systemically, on our roster. But you didn't trade Elam because you know if you want to win a Super Bowl, you're going to need guys like that. And I still wouldn't be shocked if they're not out surveying the landscape for another piece they can bring in to bolster the core. But you're not trading for a starting corner at this point in the year, Chris. I don't know a single team that's ever gone to, made a deep playoff run that traded mid-season for a cornerback. And that was one of the things, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm sure the Bills will be, Brandon Beane will be keeping his options open. But the fact that you have Elam, second year in the system, maybe he's got a little bit of a chip on his shoulder now. It'll be interesting to see what they do going forward at the position. I'm sure Dane Jackson's going to get first run. But Elam's right there. And if you play a team who has elite athletes on the outside, you could do a lot worse than a guy with Elam. And you just hope that he's learning with all this time he's spending behind the scenes. Now, as we move away from the saddest part of this game, let's get on with what actually ruled about this football game. Where this thing got won and lost, obviously there's a lot of things Buffalo did right, which we'll talk about. But one of the craziest things was Miami's lack of depth got put on full display. Like, we said this all season long. We talked with Elf Arteaga from 3 Yards Per Carry all off season long about this idea that both the Jets and Dolphins had great rosters on paper, and the second you take a hit at any key position, you are in a lot of trouble. The Miami Dolphins just walked into this, and I think I even used the analogy because I think of the Jimi Hendrix song, Castles Made of Sand. Castles made of sand fall to the sea eventually. Yeah, don't quote me on that. Bruce, I'm still going to kick your ass in karaoke. Don't let that terribly harmonized bar fool you. But this is a Miami Dolphins roster that you're starting to see that once you go one rung past a starter, things get really, really shaky. And it's at multiple levels. They lose a pass rusher. Jalen Phillips isn't in the game. The Miami front seven has been having a decent season while Fangio figures out what he wants the defense schematically to be. They shit the bed from a pass rush perspective. They're running things like 0 blitzes and giving Josh Allen 4 seconds. That shouldn't ever happen. Or maybe it wasn't 4. That's an exaggeration, but you're not supposed to be allowed to make that happen. You as a defense have 7 guys committed to 5. 2 guys are supposed to win. When it doesn't happen, I almost don't yes, you have to give credit to the offensive linemen, but you also look at the defenders and go, what the fuck did you guys do there? Whatever you did, it didn't work. So they weren't able to pressure Josh Allen, and you watched what happens to a shaky coverage group schematically when you do that to Josh Allen. On the offensive line, those issues were too much to overcome. We talked about all their lack of depth at key positions. The most glaring one out of this game was that they traded away their backup center in Dan Feeney, who seemed like he was a serviceable guy. He'd had a decent track record of starts in the NFL. They trade him away. I think Elf called it on Twitter hubris. To think we're so good, we'll take the late round draft pick. We'll let you have this functional center that we have because we got a guy. Chris, I saw that guy. Would you trust him quarterbacking? Would you trust him centering an offensive line for a quarterback with a massive concussion history?
Never.
Okay, so that tells me that you as a coaching staff either don't understand the nuance of the offensive line and their importance or how they're performing, or whoever is inputting that information in your ear needs to be fired. Remember when Sean McDermott fired Rick Dennison at the end of 2017?
Yeah.
I think that Mike McDaniels needs to take a hard look at his staff and find out whoever's feeding him the practice information and whoever's telling him, hey, trust this guy. Eichenberg's ready to go. You can trade Feeney. That guy should be fired at the end of the year because you don't need that kind of advice if you're a head coach. You just don't need it. The pressure and sack numbers in Daquan Jones' performance in this game are a direct reflection of that decision. The guy was abjectly bad, in quotes. And in a way where fans, like their own fan base, can't even find a silver lining to it. Or a place where he might improve. I saw Joe Shad from the Palm Beach Post. Joe Shad used to, it's funny, he used to be Travis Wingfield's boss.
He was at ESPN. I think
Joe Shad was getting Travis freelance work and also getting him the podcast thing and the stuff that Travis was dabbling in very early in his career. Joe Shad, because I remember him thanking Joe for a lot of the stuff that he accomplished. Joe Shad, one of the silver linings he walked out of this game with was, hey, look, our quarterback can get sacked by giant guys and not smack his head off the ground. That's proof that the jiu-jitsu training worked, and we should all consider ourselves lucky for that. Imagine living in a world, Chris, where you as a journalist have to write an article and talk about how one of the positive takeaways is that your quarterback can get sacked 4 times and not get killed.
It makes sense.
Oh, well, look, he got hit 4 times, but he doesn't have brain damage. So, hey, we should all... What the fuck are we talking about? You guys did a terrible job. It's brutal. I'm hoping Elf Artiaga can expand on some of this during this week's AFC's roundup. At defensive back, Deshaun Elliott goes out. Great safety. They bring in Brandon Jones, and man, did he suck. He blows coverage on Gabe Davis's touchdown.
That the first one?
Yeah.
Well, no, watching it on TV, the one thing that I saw on that is once Gabe Davis broke up the sideline, you also had, I don't remember who it was, somebody flanked outside for a swing pass, and he was the only guy out there. So it's I can go leave and take Davis, and then it gets dumped down.
You always
below.
take Davis, Jesus Christ.
Or I can just be left in no man's land and just get fucked. Because if I go take Davis, they'll throw it on the swing route. I can jump the swing route, and then they're going to throw it over my head to Davis.
Okay, Chris? What if I told you that I'm going to steal from you? I'm going to steal something from you. Now, the thing I'm going to steal from you can either cost $100 or it can cost $10.
I mean, if you're going to steal anything from me, it's going to be anything from a tool bag.
Are you saying I'm going to steal your tools?
Yeah, I'm going to be I'm
going to a crescent wrench.
Yeah, I'm going to need a crescent wrench. I'm Drew probably stole that because he's the type of Puerto Rican that steals tools.
I don't even think you have a tool set.
Oh, I do. It's right in there.
Yeah, it's in a bag, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what. If your tool set fits in a bag, you don't have a tool set. So, with that in mind, Brandon Jones just not only that, but then also missed tackles. He's supposed to be a box safety. He's supposed to be a guy who plays down in the box in a strong safety role. He misses tackles on Murray's big gain, right? He's also the safety who blows the second tackle attempt on Diggs' 55-yard touchdown. How do you, as a defender, allow that guy, the guy in front of you did his job. He gave up the pass, but the cornerback at least slowed him down.
Everybody at work thought that was OPI on Diggs, watching it on TV.
Those people are idiots.
You
should conspire to get them all
clearly
fired.
Looked in live play that it was OPI. And then you watch the replay and looks are deceiving.
The question, though, you have a wide receiver who's stopped because the first guy at least slowed him down. How do you as Brandon Jones not clean that play up? You're a fucking safety. That's your job. Isn't that what you saw our safeties do all day long? Clean up. Just clean up. Hey, guys, just come downhill and clean up. Like Taylor Rapp did. And this is my point. I was talking about during the game, I go, this is why Taylor Rapp is your first free agent signing. Because you don't have a Jordan Poyer for a game like this, and you go, it doesn't matter. I've got a guy who I trust, who can play deep, who can play the box, who can do a lot of things for me. And in a game where I know that I need sound tackling, he's going to be there. And he had 5 tackles. Like, that's what you want. No one talked about Taylor Rapp because he did his fucking job all day long. We're talking about Brandon Jones because he didn't. So again, the depth of Miami it's all a sandcastle and it's falling apart. And then you look at wide receiver. They only had a couple guys. Like when you look at how the targets got spread beyond Berrios, Waddle, and Hill, there was no targets to speak of for the rest of the wide receivers because those guys, Eric Ezekama's on IR. River Craycraft on IR. Nobody else got anything going for them. Whereas Josh Allen was able to sit back there and go, you know what else? I mean, look at this. If I pull up Pro Football Focus right now and I look at that game, let's do it by game, and then let's go receiving. And then we'll just look at targets.
So I felt like watching Miami on offense. I feel like I didn't hear Waddle's name until the second half.
See, everybody got 4 targets. Hill, a shit. But then some of the... But look at this. 1, 2, 3. 3 of those guys. Okay, so 3 of the people targeted were not wide receivers. When you look at this, Trent Sherfield, Deontay Hardy, Khalil Shakir's getting targets. Kincaid's going to... We spread our targets, but we worked Stephon Diggs. And they allowed that. I just look at this and I go, nobody else outside of there did anything worth of note. And even their wide receivers struggled to find production. But then you get into Stephon Diggs. And Chris, something that I texted you, and I think you have we talked at the top of the show about those numbers, right? The numbers that Stephon Diggs put up against Kader Kohu. And I texted you the other night, and I'm going to read it from my phone. There's something to this, and this is why the idea that Vic Fangio was going to be the savior of this defense, it just rings a little hollow for me. I remember the last time, because Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs together, they had Brian Daboll as an offensive coordinator. They only played Vic Fangio one other time, and that was he was calling the defensive plays for the Denver Broncos. We were a powerhouse team en route to an AFC championship game appearance. But nonetheless, we went into that game, and it's noteworthy because when you think about this, they spent the whole game, if you watched it, motioning Diggs around the formations to get him on Kader Kohu. They wanted that matchup. And whenever they could get it, that was Allen's first read. So Allen against Fangio, his 2 games. I'm going to read you the stats. 2 games, 2-0 record. 679 passing yards. 6 touchdowns. 40 rushing yards and 3 touchdowns. Only 3 sacks taken. The best part of that game against Denver, though, is when you look at how he did it. Stephon Diggs going up against the guy who was effectively their cornerback 3. He was playing for an injured CB2, Devontae Bosby. 8 targets, 7 receptions, 112 yards, and 5 first downs. The secret was kind of uncovered by Brian Daboll at that point. He said, look, here's what Vic Fangio does. He's very much in love with these zone defenses, and he'll play a little zone match here and there. He'll do some things. But he does not believe in the Meg principle, the man everywhere he goes. And so that means that you're never going to watch him allocate Xavier Howard to Stephon Diggs. You were never going to watch him in 2020 allocate A.J. Bouye, his best cornerback, to Stephon Diggs. Bouye was going to have a position, and it was just up to whatever came over there for him to defend it. Chris, you could see how that's a problem if you have a quarterback and wide receiver combo like Stephon Diggs and Josh Allen, right?
Yes, they're gods.
So they moved him around all game to make sure that he could get on Bosby and then worked them to death up and down the field. And then when they get in the red zone, it was a rushing touchdown. It was a pass to touchdown Jesus. It was rushing touchdowns from Josh Allen. It was everything they needed, but it was Diggs who was converting and moving the chains and doing things for us, to the point where now Diggs is pulling safety help, but still catching the ball. And it's opened up the rest of the field for everybody else to have days. You watch that same dynamic happen here again, and I think it's philosophical about the idea that Vic Fangio is an old man with an old approach. He doesn't believe in the concept of allowing his best players to follow the best players. And that's going to cripple them. And when I pointed it out during the game, there were some people sitting around me who, like, I was just like, oh, look, I see what they're doing. I'm not a moron. I might be moonshined up, but I can tell that guy is Diggs is being motioned around to wherever Kohu is. It's just like, hey, can we get this? And in a lot of there were a lot of plays that they didn't get it. There were a lot of plays where they would move Diggs and they couldn't quite figure it out, or at least on that play they weren't trying. But there would be times where they're like, can we bait him into coming over here and covering him? And they couldn't. So they just didn't throw it. And then as soon as they did, they were like, okay, there's a matchup we like. Let's see if we can work it. And then someone else would come open and watch him throw away. But if you go back and watch the All-22, you see more, like, Diggs' stat line could have been crazier. Chris, if that makes sense, Diggs' stat line could have been crazier than it was if other guys weren't also winning their matchups.
Makes sense.
I think that Dable kind of figured out the blueprint of how to beat Vic Fangio. And so going into these matchups, you've got Diggs and Allen who are like, hey, Dorsey, here's the thing. We already know this thing. It's already worked for us. We have it journaled and we have it written down. Can we just try that again and see how it goes? Can we just try this and see if it works? Did it work?
It worked. I'd like to see it work in January when we go down there.
Yeah. The other thing I like is this idea that Tua and McDaniels, for all the fucking props they've been getting, 70 points. No one's ever put any pressure on him, both figuratively and literally. And as soon as it happened, they both went to shit. Both of them. Okay? Tua comes into the day, least sack quarterback in football. As soon as pressure got applied, he got sloppy. His completion percentage was good, but at least 2 of those sacks should have been throwaways or checkdowns. Those are his fault. Yes, you can blame the lineman for allowing the pressure, but those are poor decisions to keep trying to push the ball down the field, knowing that the Bills know your tendencies. You're not new. You're not going to surprise Sean McDermott. After losing yards on the snap exchange fumble, this was the play of the day for me. This is what solidified it. The Dolphins stuck at the 25, but it's second down, right? 2-score game. You're still in this. The game is still manageable considering what you are on offense. Got a lot of time. Everything could go your way. On the interception to Hyde, I literally called where the ball was going to be going to my wife pre-snap. I was like, oh, well, here's what's going to happen. We're showing blitz from the corner. Okay? We're showing blitz from the corner. We never fake that. That's not a thing Sean McDermott does. He'll show fake blitz with the linebackers. He'll line them up in the A-gaps and bail them out. He'll bring them to the tackle spot and then bail them out. Usually if there's a running back to that side, you'll see that, where you'll see a guy like over guard tackle. And then after the snap, they drop back because they can still cover their zone where they should have been if they had stayed home in a traditional defense. At the same time, you're looking at, they send him, but those are the guys who drop back. He trusts that, usually because he has elite athletes or high-level athletes at linebacker. High RAS score, high speed, agility, the whole nine. When he shows you corner blitz, he goes more often than he doesn't. So I see this, and I say to myself, that whoever that slot receiver is, I don't know if it's Barrios, I don't know who the fuck number 3 is, but I go, that guy is going to have immediate leverage on whatever linebacker is out there because he's going to come clean off the line. And the Bills were back a little bit, and I said to myself, okay, he's going to attack that spot. And sure enough, he throws it there. But because the pressure in his face was immediate, he sails it just a touch. And that's all it took. Play recognition, film study, Micah Hyde jumps the pass. And that's it. We take what should have been a 2-score game and we blow it wide open from there and never look back. That's the moment the whole game changed. And I forecasted where the ball was going to go just watching it happen, a bunch of beers deep, just sitting there in my seat. And my wife obviously now thinks that I'm smart. You know, she goes, "Oh, Mike, you see, this is why you know this." And I go, no, I know what I'm talking about. I'm not a complete moron. Now, don't get me wrong. I am a moron. I'm not a complete moron. Watching that happen, I said to myself, I don't dislike Tua or his game or what the offense does. I just know that you guys have one of these things going where it is predictable. And with enough film study, with the right safety and with the right defensive back acumen, and our coach, who, Chris, not for nothing, defensive back. Think about how many defensive backs have had career years under him.
Roman Harper, he made Josh Norman. There's a lot of cornerbacks and defensive backs who have played for him who have had good seasons, then gone elsewhere. Levi Wallace. Dane Jackson, coming from nowhere. Guys who have come from seemingly nowhere and been very serviceable cornerbacks. Who was the dude in Philly?
Ron Darby?
No, he was... Wasn't there a guy that corner for Philly, and then he went to the Raiders and was like just absolute shit, and then fell out of the league? Like
Asamoah.
Yeah. Did he have
Asamoah?
When did he play?
Well, I don't know.
I'll have to look it up.
Look it up.
Let me ask you this: how do you spell it?
Oh, Asamoah. A-S. No. Asamoah. A-S-A-M-O-A-H.
It'll take some time for me to find this.
Because Chris can't type. Namdi. N-A-M-D-I. I think it's apostrophe D-I. Whatever you're doing, I can't watch you type. I'm just going to yell at you. I'm over here backseat driving a Googler, guys. That's how fired up I am. So, realistically, Jordan Poyer and Micah Hyde, when they got here, weren't household names. They weren't all pro safeties. They were just guys who were also Rams on their team. And they got here and started playing high-level football because they had a coach who understood how to communicate those things. So no one should be shocked that we can shut down an offense like this the way that we did. No one should be. The guy who should be is Mike McDaniels, because I guess I don't understand what you thought was going to happen. And then I look at him and I go, not just how did you not expect this and not have a curveball in your back pocket?
They missed each other by a year.
Yeah. How the fuck does Mike McDaniel do that poorly on fourth down play selection? If you're this genius, right? Chris, 0 for 3 on fourth down doesn't do what took place justice. It just doesn't. The first attempt is 4th and 1. You have already at this point in the game run the ball for over 100 yards. You call a fucking pass on 4th and 1 and Ed Oliver sacks you for an 8-yard loss. You turn the ball over on downs. The second attempt, it's 4th and 6. Now the scoreboard has gotten so lopsided you're obligated to throw the football, and so has the yardage marker. You need 6.5 yards and know the Bills aren't going to sit back and play coverage. They're coming for you. No one is open, and yet while holding the ball, Tua eats another sack for an 11-yard loss. Chris, if you're a smart guy who's supposed to be an offensive guru, and that's your staple, that's your label, that's your creed, how do you not understand the value of just running the goddamn football?
I don't know.
Your team was doing it well. And then he did this was the San Francisco game all over again for them, I feel like. Except against a better quarterback. You did the thing well in the first half. It was that game in Buffalo back last winter.
Yeah.
Where they were running the ball well. And then when push came to shove, they pissed down their leg and decided they didn't want to play big boy football anymore.
Oh, it's snowing. Let's stop running the ball.
Let's stop running the football. Snow, literally in that game, Chris.
Yeah.
The second the snow started to fall, it was picturesque. It was like something out of a movie. The snow starts to fall, and the Miami Dolphins fall apart, and Buffalo rallies to win the game on the back of our rushing attack. Josh Allen, Devin Singletary. Boom. Carries us to victory. Meanwhile, the Dolphins throw a bunch of incompletions and punt to us a couple times. We score, win the game. Like, there's something to being too smart, and I feel like McDaniels still has that. And he needs to outgrow that quickly, or else this isn't going to go well for him. Between that and the injuries and everything else, I don't know how Dolphins fans are supposed to feel. I don't feel like their team's going to roll over and die, but holy shit, did the Bills just impress the shit out of me with the composure they showed. Like everything that they had this week, and I think this week's hero of the game, I got to give it to defensive coordinator and head coach Sean McDermott.
Don't take it personally, all right? Franchise star players are a lot like Highlanders. There can only be one.
Chris, Saturday before the game, Ryan Lasel from Rock Sports and I were talking about the concept of how even if nothing would actually be done about it if things went poorly, this game was at least kind of a referendum on our head coach. Like, for all the money you get and for all the extensions you've been given, you need to be able to show that you can hold serve with the NFL's elite offenses. Bill Belichick, everyone likes to believe he's washed at this point. Okay. He could be, but he held the Dolphins to 24 points. If McDermott couldn't do that, with what's billed as a much more talented defense, I don't know. I think there would have been a lot of questions about him being the quote-unquote same old McDermott. And just a defense that always plays softer than it should. Funny thing about that idea that we were talking about, we were consistently told throughout Leslie Frazier's tenure here that his fingerprints were all over it, from a preparation standpoint to a design standpoint, at least whenever it was being touted as a positive thing, right? Sean McDermott was always very quick to be like, hey, Leslie Frazier does a hell of a job with the defense. And everyone would point out, like, well, Frazier's the guy. And then when you'd have bad games, you'd blame Sean McDermott, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
I think we all did. I remember last year, during last year's Kansas City game, I remember having the conversation where I go, is he John Fox? Is this a defensive-minded head coach who's just... But I don't know. I think that there was a lot of positive said about this being Leslie Frazier's defense when it was advantageous. Talked about him, going for a head coaching gig, almost just, or whenever it was to protect him from the detritus of drunk fans upset over a lackluster performance like me. It was always coming down to, this is Leslie Frazier's defense when he does well. And when he does poorly, we all pile on Sean McDermott because we go, you're a defensive head coach. Why isn't your defense better? So why didn't anyone believe that they would get something different with Sean McDermott this season, now pulling the strings on the scheme and calling the plays? Chris, why didn't anybody think that things were going to get better? Or that things would be different or more aggressive? I
don't know. I thought we were going to do worse overall.
You thought we were going to backslide?
I mean, that's what the media was telling me.
Oh, yeah, no. Well, that's it. And that's it. We didn't get any love from anybody. So in a matchup with a fellow head coach who's been touted as a really, really smart guy, and with the defensive coordinator riding shotgun with him, who's the talk of the AFC East offseason, because that was supposed to be one of the reasons that the Dolphins were AFC East favorites. They're the guys who got all the fanfare as the quote-unquote best new defensive coordinator in the division. McDermott put both of them to shame at the same time. If it was possible to pants two people at once, Chris, he did it on Sunday.
He's got two hands.
Yeah,
left and right, one.
Yeah, but he's too busy clapping. Like, you're talking about a guy, like, okay, first of all, remember all that blitzing that screwed Josh Boyer? Mm-hmm. Ken Dorsey remembered that. They called a zero blitz, didn't get home. Kohu's left alone with no help from a safety on Stephon Diggs. Didn't go well. They put linebackers and safeties who weren't prepped on how to properly attack the line of scrimmage and get running backs out of the backfield. Didn't have them prepped on how our running backs operate. So Cook and Murray each rattled off a 25-plus yard play for over 100 all-purpose yards between the two running backs. We throttled these guys on the outside, on the inside. We throttled them deep. We gave their boundary cornerback. He gave their boundary cornerback zero support over the top, and we beat him like a drum for it. That's the guy who got more shine than my head coach, Sean McDermott? Go fuck yourself. I take that personally. I take it personally. McDermott, meanwhile, set like the league's number one offense firmly and embarrassingly on its ass this weekend. Boom. Who's defensive coordinator now? Our team's approach was cohesive. It was aggressive in both trenches, from our defensive bid tackles just barnstorming the quarterback to left tackles pulling across entire formations to help the right tackle seal a touchdown rushing lane for your quarterback. And then we were just relentless in the pressure they created without really blitzing, which allowed them to shut down a lot of the passing lanes. We dominated the Dolphins in both phases, and Sean McDermott deserves all of the credit for that, because he's a head coach of a team that played like the team we always thought they were capable of. And then the offense on it's just continued its heater that it's on, and the result, Chris, look at the numbers, the chart that's in the notes there.
I see it.
Yeah. So it's on an X and Y axis. If you're watching it on YouTube, you can probably see it right now in the graphic. It's NFL team tiers for 2023, and it's talking about the EPA per play on defense and offense. And if you want the best team in the NFL for EPA per play on offense and defense, it's the Buffalo Bills by a considerable margin. Like, it's, Chris, there's nobody close to us.
San Francisco.
Dallas.
Miami,
their offense is great. How about their defense?
Not good.
No, and we just exposed that.
Yeah.
And then a step further. Today I saw a tweet, and I bookmarked it specifically so I could find this. Here we go. Chris, I'm going to send you this so you can put the graphic on the AllTube. This guy, you can find it on our, I just retweeted it. You can find it at Rockpile Report on our Twitter feed. It says, folks, the Bills might be very good this year. Like, very, very good. And what it is, it's that same XY axis of defensive and offensive EPA, except for whole seasons. Across an XY axis, Bills, Chiefs, Patriots. Across this entire thing, right now, we have a better defensive and offensive EPA than any Chiefs, Patriots, or Bills team ever. Ever. Sean McDermott deserves all the flowers today. Because he is the guy who came in and put his fingerprints on a lot of different things. And while obviously it's impressive what Josh Allen is doing, I've gotten tired of singing that guy's praises. We all know he's amazing. I don't think the coach is getting enough love for what he did with the other side of the football, because our team was always going to be a good offense, regardless of what the zero tonight thinks. And that's the national media.
You folks fell on your face. You get an F- in my book.
Now, Chris, we had a back and forth pre-show about how you want to handle this. How do you want to do it?
To the Miami Dolphins, here is my reason why. I'm assuming Tua Tagovailoa will be healthy, obviously. Think about what they did defensively. Vic Fangio, one of the most brilliant minds in all of football. Jalen Ramsey, now partnered with Xavier Howard. Think about what they still have offensively. Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle. Remember, Tua started the season 8-3. Played the majority of the season with a concussion, without a concussion. We didn't even know. And still, they only lost by 3 points in the playoffs with Skylar Thompson. The Dolphins are my number 2.
Having no Tremaine Edmonds. You know, Von Miller might not have him early on in the year. You hear me talk about all the time. Do they got, studs who can make a play in a clutch situation to help them win those games? Jordan Poyer a year older, Michael Hyde a year older. What's Tre'Davious White going to look like? Because it was not good when he came back last year. Kazir White, is he going to start? Or are they going to start somebody else? I don't know. Kazir White, right? No, not Kazir White. Khair Elam, excuse me. Khair Elam. The offensive line, can it be dominant? Right? I'm going to go the under. I'm going the under. I'm not going way under, right? I'm not. But I'm going to go like 10. I'm thinking 10-7 for the Buffalo Bills.
3 years ago, we were talking about Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen. Then we talked about Patrick Mahomes and Joe Burrow. Now we're talking about Patrick Mahomes, Joe Burrow, Tua Tagovailoa. Josh Allen keeps slipping. I'm not talking about his skill set. I'm not talking about his greatness. I'm talking about when the dust settles and the season ends, where are you?
I've been all alone, just looking at this island, eating coconuts by myself. Today, expensive real estate on Pump the Brakes on Josh Allen Island, but I interrupt. Go ahead. Let me hear it.
I will say this. We know coordinators matter. I mean, Kyle Shanahan made Matt Ryan the MVP. They matter. This player is starting to go back to the Wyoming first year Josh Allen, which is impatient, mechanics, won't slide, out of control. I mean, one of those picks last night was just awful. And it's like, okay, Brian Daboll may be really, I mean, we know Brian Daboll's good. He may be the link to Josh Allen being great and Josh Allen just being a talented turnover machine.
Well, there's all your blowhards from the national media. Before we
Hang on, let's run him down.
Hold on. I just one more time.
Kazir White, is he going to start? Or are they going to start somebody else? I don't know.
White.
Yeah, Kazir
Who the
White.
fuck
right?
is Kazir White?
He used to be a running back for the Chargers
Elam.
like 5 years ago. Google it. Give it a Google. Right now, Kazir White. Kyzer White.
Also, I'd like to know who is Michael Hyde.
Kazir White. Michael Hyde?
Yeah, who's Michael?
Oh, no, Kazir White's a safety. Kazir White's a safety.
Yeah, Chris Sims doesn't know what he's talking about.
Guys, just first of all, to preface, Emmanuel Acho from, what is that, FS1?
Yes.
Okay.
Fox Sports.
Stephen A. Smith.
ESPN.
Chris Sims.
NBC. Nick Wright. Colin Cowherd. Fox Sports.
From Fox Sports. Okay, let me start here. First of all, to the motherfucker with the bad hair that looks like Bart Simpson, what do you know? What would you know about it? Like, what makes Emmanuel Acho qualified to talk about football? Chris, can we talk about that for a second?
They wear skin-tight suits.
Okay, so you're muscular, you have Bart Simpson hair, and you wear skin-tight suits. You were a shitty NFL football player. You can talk. You were an awful player. What do you think you know, objectively know about the game of football? How often has Emmanuel Acho been correct, Chris?
I mean, he loves Miami.
Yeah, he loves Miami. Does he love Miami today?
Probably not.
How's he feel about that?
Probably not.
Also, Professor Snape's handicapped brother, Nick Wright there. Like the guy from the butler from Scary Movie called. He wants his hair back. This guy, his shtick never gets old. Hey, the guy, him and Cowherd, what do you call him? A talented turnover machine?
Cowherd actually picked Buffalo to win on Sunday.
Of course he did, because he's not a moron. He's not stuck with the shtick like Nick Wright is. Hey, Nick Wright, week 1, you want to talk about a talented turnover machine? Week 1, 1 touchdown, 3 interceptions, and 5 sacks for Josh Allen. Weeks 2 through 4, 8 touchdowns, 1 pick, 4 sacks, 2 rushing touchdowns, 2 games with a QBR over 124. Is Nick Wright going to call for Patrick Mahomes' head now that he threw 3 picks against the New York Jets?
Touchy. Those were like, I'm going to try touch passes over these Jet defenders and throw them right to him. I was watching...
Am I going to hear the same fire out of Nick's stupid fucking
Yesterday, I watched a clip on YouTube. I watched a clip of Nick Wright on First Things First from Monday because I was interested to see if he had any change of heart to what the Bills did to the Dolphins. And this fucking, first of all, he looks like John Wick with chlamydia. That's every day he walks into wardrobe at Fox and goes, "Can you give me John Wick with chlamydia?" He triggered me on Monday.
He triggered me.
He did because he talked up the Bills game and now how the national media is all back and wrapped up on the Bills, and he dropped a banner on set that said September champions.
The second
that I like almost bit the Roku remote because Miami is the September champions. They went 3-0, 70 points on the Broncos. You call the Bills September champions when we beat Miami in October? You fucking idiot.
He looks like Hans Gruber with a bigger fucking nose.
I could see that. I could see that.
Except instead of stealing bearers bonds from Nakatomi Plaza, he's just stealing money from all of these people who pay for daytime TV and sports talk television. Fuck that guy running. What about Chris Sims? Again, Chris Sims, his illustrious quarterback career. Remember when he used to sing the praises of Josh Allen? My favorite part about that clip of his, aside from the Kazir White
and Michael Hyde,
he spent that whole, guys, if you guys want it, just tweet at us. I'll give you the clip. I'll give you the timestamps. In fact, I may even tweet it out myself. I'm going to, after I have 5 more Montuckies, because I'm sick of this shit. He went on a diatribe at the beginning of the season about how the Bills didn't do enough to move the needle for me. What did they bring in? What did they bring in to change the vibe? We don't need to change the vibe. We're a 3-time AFC championship team. Read the shirt. Okay? We run the East. What do the Bills need? Well, they didn't change the vibe. I don't need to. It's the rest of you that need to catch me. So what did you all do? What did you do that's so great that it all of a sudden trumps us? And they almost, in his mind, he discounts the Buffalo Bills because we just stayed the course. Chris, if anything, we got better. Look at the players we lost versus the players we put in prominent roles this season. Just look at it, side by side. We gained Hardy, and we gained Sherfield. Okay? You gained and also a tight end, Kincaid.
Also, Greg Russo, a year older.
You also put a Terrell Bernard in at middle linebacker.
Yep.
Who, I don't have to tell you guys, is playing some phenomenal football in a more aggressive scheme than what Leslie Frazier would have put out there. Which part of me wonders if that also doesn't play a role in his not seeing the field last year. Aside, obviously you have Tremaine Edmonds, but then even with I don't know. I wonder the game that he did get, if they just figured out, hey, you can't play a passive system like this. You need a more aggressive scheme for you to be functional. And maybe another year of experience has helped him, but I digress. You lost Tremaine Edmonds, who isn't doing well. He's putting up Paul Posluszny stat lines in Chicago, which their defense is awful, so that tracks. He is not the game changer that you paid him to be. Isaiah McKenzie, who's already been cut by the Colts. He's not even on the roster anymore. Who else did we lose of note, Chris?
Michael Hyde.
Michael Hyde? I think I've seen him at the laundromat.
Yeah.
I feel like years ago I ran into a guy named... All I know is his whole premise is flawed. It's based on bullshit. It's just, they didn't make the Jalen Ramsey trade, and they didn't sign a Vic Fangio, and they didn't do this, so I just don't have as much faith in them as I did before. Fuck you, I don't have to do anything. My coach is a good football coach. This quarterback is a good quarterback, and this is a good football team. Chris, the comment about Josh Allen no longer being elite... Holy shit, what are we even talking? If you're going to go out there and say something like that, then that tells me you're not actually watching the games. What that tells me is that you're box score watching as a professional who goes out there and pontificates on TV, which is, Chris, you want to know why those mediums are failing, it's this type of shit. It's this hack coverage of football. But it enrages me that these guys are given the platform that they are and given the credence that they are when they use it to say things like this, where they go, oh, Josh Allen's slipping out of that elite tier of quarterbacks. Chris,
you don't
AFC Offensive Player of the Week, 2 out of the first 4 weeks of the season. How many does Patrick Mahomes have?
I don't know. You don't think
how's that team?
You don't think
running?
Any of these national bloviators don't have the budget to hire Bill Barnwell's staff to do his research?
Fuck Bill Barnwell too, dude. I'll slap the sideburns right off that guy at this point. I've had enough. Yeah. Hey, how about you talk to Nick Wright about the fact that points per game, Kansas City is 9th. They're behind Detroit. They're behind Seattle. They're behind a whole bunch of contenders, right? The Chargers. Kansas City is behind a team in their own division in terms of points per game. I don't hear that out of Nick Wright's mouth. I don't hear that out of anybody. You guys can all kick rocks, you're hacks. And I love the fact that now you all have to find a way to, you have to circle your own fucking wagons and figure out how to save face after Josh Allen, Sean McDermott, and the Buffalo Bills just kicked the shit out of one of your preseason darlings. I've had enough. These guys are all hacks, all of them. And the fact that they get the run that they do and are allowed to make these reckless statements with what they think is no repercussions, because there are none. You're never going to get fired. It's hyperbolic. It's getting clicks. It's getting views. I had to click on it just to get the videos so that Chris could get the audio. Like, that's it. You're making money, whatever. But for anybody who gives these guys any credence, I want you to hear it. I want you to see it. Look at what a joke this has become. Those guys can all kick rocks. They can suck it, and I'm finished with them. And I'm happy that we're here at this point at the quarter pole of the season, where the Nick Wrights of the world, the Stephen A. Smiths of the world, the Colin Cowherds of the world, even though, Chris, you said he did come over to the dark side?
Yeah, he picked, I mean, I listen to him every week. He picked Buffalo to win. It was in his blazing 5.
Because he's smart.
Yeah.
He realizes that even if he's doing like the sports radio version of shock jockery, he still has to, hey, listen, I gotta pivot. Like, I gotta be smart enough to pivot when it matters. They all will. And everyone else should. This team, right now, like, you could doubt the win, right? You could doubt the win against the Raiders because the Raiders are sad. You could doubt the win against the Redskins if you want to. This one, I can't wait to hear the manufactured excuses. I can't wait. I want to hear it. I can't wait for it because it's going to be more of the same. This Bills team deserves better. They've proven better, and I'm just happy, Chris, that we get to, like I said, they all suck in their own ways. I mean, Stephen A. Smith, that guy, like, I don't even know what you can say about him anymore. Are there even any good, like, roasts you can throw him?
No.
I think he's just old and he's so ubiquitous. But Nick Wright, like Emmanuel Acho, Chris Sims' NFL career, hilariously bad. Didn't they? Well, what is Sims' claim to fame? Does he have one?
Being related to Phil Sims.
Is that it?
That's it.
Like he shared a sperm donor, and all of a sudden we're supposed to. I have to take your opinion seriously.
Yeah.
Guys, I'm glad we're all here. We're all having this conversation. Guys, the Bills run the East again. We're on top. We're on top for the first time all season. I mean, obviously the question is how long can you stay there? Being on top in the NFL is like riding a bull. It's hard. And it gets harder the longer you're trying to do it. But at least for today, we can emphatically say that today the Buffalo Bills are emphatically better than the Miami Dolphins. And I'm happy that everybody with a shitty opinion and a platform now knows that. This has been a lot of fun, guys, but for tonight, we got to get the hell out of here. I'm Drew Gear. That's Chris Kruger. This has been your Rockpile.
Congratulations, you made it to the end of the video. Hit that like button, smash that subscribe button. Let's get to 1,000 followers so we can play for Drew's braces.